Yo guys, what is up? Moxie here with another Elden Ring video, and today we're going to be going over the top 5 faith damage weapons in Elden Ring. Now there is a lot to pick from, but I wanted to come up with a list of the top 5 weapons based off of their base damage, their scaling with the faith stat, and their usefulness in their move set. Also in this video, I'm going to be explaining how damage scaling works and explain to you how to get the most damage out of your weapons in Elden Ring. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you find it informative. If you do, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, guys, let's get right into it. Before we jump into the weapon list, I just want to explain damage scaling because there's a lot of new players jumping into the Soul series for the very first time, and these numbers and these letters can be really confusing. So if we take a look at my +8 Sacred Scythe, I've got 136 base holy damage. That number is influenced by the +8. As I use whetstones to level up this scythe, that base number will increase. However, that random floating 59, you may have seen it on your weapons, that is my bonus damage from my attributes. Now, as a D-Faith scaling weapon, I'm going to be getting 25 to 50% of my faith stat added as extra holy damage. If we look over at my Wing Scythe +6, this has C-Faith scaling. Notice my faith hasn't changed. I am still at 45 faith. However, I am now getting +94 damage on this weapon as opposed to the 59 before. And that is how you're able to scale up your damage more and more, is as you get better scaling weapons, you'll get more damage on them and be able to hit enemies way harder, melt those bosses faster. So I just wanted to explain that first. All right, now let's get into the weapon list. Coming in our number 5 spot is the Golden Halberd. Now this weapon gets D-Faith scaling. Even as you rank it up, it'll keep its D-Faith scaling, which is solid, and its Ash of War allows you to increase your attack and defense for a while, which is super helpful. Increase your attack and defense. Its moveset is solid. The only downside to this weapon is its 30 strength requirement. If you plan on going a faith strength build, this is a really great start. There's a better option later on this list, but a really solid start to number 5. So coming in our number 4 slot is the Coated Sword. Now this gets A faith scaling at rank 6. I think it goes all the way up to S, and it starts with B, which means it's the highest starting faith weapon in the game, at least so far that I've found. It does a crazy Ash of War Holy Blade slash, and it's a super great pickup, as well as this attack being unblockable. I could see this being a strong PvP weapon as well. The reason this is not number 1, because it technically should be, because it has the best faith scaling out of any of the weapons on this list, is because of its attack power. Now, even with high faith, I take so long to kill enemies with this thing, so many slashes, and I think that's because it's missing physical damage. A lot of the other weapons on this list have holy damage plus physical, and I just found this thing wasn't really cutting it in the damage department, especially for how small openings are. If you're going to use this thing, I'd strongly recommend dual wielding it with another sword that does holy damage. That way, at least you can kind of make up for a little bit of that lack of damage originally with another sword. So that is my suggestion if you're going to want to use this thing. But having an attack that is unblockable is very nice. To get the Coated Sword, it's a little bit complicated, so I would just want to explain it, because not only do you get the Coated Sword at this spot, but you also get the Sacred Whetstone, which allows you to apply sacred scaling to any weapon and use any Ash of War, as well as a new prayer book that allows you to get new incantations. So kind of important spot to grab. You're going to be able to need to get to the capital first from the lower capital church spawn point. You want to scale up the side of the dragon. There's a dragon laying there. If you go up the top of it, you'll eventually go through and some more things, and then you'll see some wooden shacks. Jump up on top of the shacks, and then you'll get to an area that's kind of like the round table area from where you actual round table like spawn is. And in here is a ton of items, and a lot of them are faith scaling items or good for faith builds. So really good spot to be able to find. At our number 3 slot, and you could even argue this for number 2 or even number 1, are bleed weapons that do not come with an Ash of War. Now, let me explain this because it's a little bit complicated, so just stick with me. When you get a weapon that does not come with an Ash of War, you can apply one to it. So, for example, I have this. Let's just use this hammer as an example. This is a great war hammer. It's got D strength, D dexterity, and causes blood buildup. We're using blood buildup weapons because bleed is an incredibly strong mechanic. When you build up bleed on an enemy, a bleed explosion is going to happen that deals a percentage of their max health, which is extremely effective against tankier, beefier enemies such as bosses, because that bleed explosion will deal more damage. I've had bleeds hit for 13,000 damage. Now, what this allows us to do is we can put faith scaling on bleed weapons and not only get physical damage and holy damage, but also bleed damage, which is incredibly powerful. Now, early on in the game, you can get Sacred Blade, and Sacred Blade will allow you to apply sacred scaling to weapons. However, once you get a Sacred Whetstone, which I'll show you at the end of the video how to get, you can apply any Ash of War on any weapon. So, for example, this Uchigatana, which causes blood buildup, I could put on this Bloodhound Step. Now, Bloodhound Step is going to give it B dex scaling. However, if I want to use the Ash of War but change the scaling, I can now change it to Sacred. What this allows me to do now is I can have an Uchigatana, which is a crazy weapon, and do these like dashes around. I can apply any Ash of War and turn it into my perfect weapon, and it's now going to be doing blood. I can dash around, and it's got holy scaling. This is an incredibly strong strategy, and honestly one of the best ways and what you should be using to get yourself through the game. My favorite two bleed weapons to put faith scaling on are the Scythe, which can be found in the cliff bottom catacombs. As you're in the catacombs, you'll see a shrouded door that you need to use a stone sword key on. Ignore that, run up the stairs and just keep going. You'll get to a little area where you see a bunch of goblins. Take a left and you'll find the Scythe on a corpse. For the Uchigatana, you're going to want to come to the Death Touch catacombs. Once you're there, when you're walking down the stairs, you're going to take a right and then an immediate left into this secret passage, and then take another left, and then you should be at the Uchigatana. Coming in our number 2 spot are the Black Gargoyle weapons. Now, these weapons are acquired from killing the Black Gargoyle that is outside Bestial Sanctum. And these two weapons, it'll drop both if you kill it, are some of the hardest weapons to acquire on this list because you actually have to kill that boss to get them. And he is no joke. My final kill on him took me about 15 minutes of just throwing a spell out at him and then running away back into the sanctum and then walking out and throwing a spell back at him. It was scary and I died a bunch of times, but these weapons are so cool. So the one thing that's holding these weapons back is they do not, at least from my leveling up, change to C faith scaling. I think they might get stuck at D, same with our number 5 spot, but they both have crazy Ash of Wars and do tons of damage, both in the holy department and in the physical department. And they're just good to use because they've got a bunch of stagger on them. This is the Halberd. It's got a really cool Ash of War that lets you do this spinning attack. And you've already seen the Black Blade's Dark Flame Pyromancy. This will hit multiple enemies with basically the Black Flame spell that'll dot enemies. Both are really cool, but not good enough to be our number 1 spot. And coming in at our number 5 spot, what I believe to be the best faith weapon in Elden Ring is none other than the Winged Scythe. Now, let me explain here. This is a unique scythe that comes with the best Ash of War that I've used in this game, hands down. This spinning attack, this slash, covers huge distance. On the first hit, you can stagger enemies, so to guarantee the second hit, it causes tons of bleed buildup. It's just overall really powerful. I find myself connecting on it all the time. It's very hard to get punished. It's got great range, and this weapon gets C faith scaling at only a +6, which allows it to compete and do better damage than any of the other weapons that I've used on this list. The fact that this thing's Ash of War is so freaking strong and it's got that C faith scaling allows this to be what I believe to be the best weapon. If you have not gotten this thing, I strongly recommend it. Some of the toughest enemies in the game that just absolutely obliterate me, I have no issues when I use this thing because I can basically cheese them using my Ash of War, using my blood buildup. With this thing, I hit for a 13,000 blood buildup proc on a big old dragon. It was insane. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That is it for the top 5 list. If you appreciated the effort that went into this video, or maybe learned something new, or want to see more guides like it, I appreciate you liking the video, maybe even subscribing. We're on the road to 200,000 subscribers. I will catch y'all in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace. Disgusting. Dual size looks so badass. Yo, I appreciate it. I think that's why I wanted to go faith scythes. 13,000 bleed proc. That's wild.